I used to think marriage was the beginning of a beautiful life, a merging of two hearts, two families, and two futures. I believed that when you marry someone, you gain a partner who stands beside you no matter what, and a family that becomes your own. I had grown up watching my parents love each other quietly and consistently. They didn't have dramatic romantic gestures or movie-style passion, but they respected each other. They listened. They cared. Maybe that's why I ignored the early red flags. When you're raised in a home where kindness is normal, cruelty looks like an exception, not a warning. My husband, Arjun, was charming in all the ways that matter to a young woman seeking stability. Polite, soft-spoken, steady. He treated me with a gentle kind of affection, as though he didn't want to overwhelm me. I used to think that meant he valued me. Now, looking back, I wonder if it was just indifference disguised as politeness. But the real shock came after the wedding. The very first morning in my new home, before I even had the chance to fully wake up, I found myself being shaken lightly by my mother-in-law. "Beta, get up," she said, tapping my arm as though I were a student sleeping in class. "It's 5 a.m. The daughter-in-law has responsibilities." Responsibilities. That word echoed in the back of my sleepy mind, but I pushed myself up immediately. The excitement of being a newlywed hadn't faded yet. I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted to show them I was capable, respectful, and eager to be part of their family. I didn't know at the time that this simple desire would be used against me. When I stepped out into the kitchen, everything was already laid out. Vegetables, flour, steel plates, and spices. It looked like preparations for a feast, except it was supposed to be breakfast. My sister-in-law, Mina, was leaning against the fridge, scrolling on her phone. "Make tea for everyone first," she said without even looking at me. 8 cups? 8. I blinked. There were only 5 of us in the house. "For the workers outside too," she added, finally glancing up. "They start early." Workers, tea, 8 cups. I nodded and got to work, refusing to let discomfort show. Families had their traditions. I was just adjusting. But then breakfast followed, and after that, lunch prep. Then cleaning, then laundry, then dishes, then evening tea, then dinner, then more dishes. By the end of the day, my feet throbbed, my back ached, my eyes burned, and not once did anyone say thank you. Not my mother-in-law, not my sister-in-law, not even Arjun. It was as though they expected it, as though this had been planned. I wanted to talk to my husband that night, but by the time I entered our room, he was already asleep. Fully, peacefully, deeply. Meanwhile, I stood there smelling like oil, sweat, and masala. Still, I convinced myself, maybe tomorrow will be better. It didn't get better. Every day, I woke up earlier. Every day, they added new tasks. Every day, the list of things I wasn't allowed to do grew longer. No, don't use this room. That's for guests. Don't sit there. That's your father-in-law's chair. Don't eat before us. It's not appropriate. Don't talk back. A good daughter-in-law listens. A bahu should keep her eyes lowered. A bahu shouldn't laugh too loudly. A bahu must serve everyone before she eats. A bahu must be the backbone of the house. Backbone. Funny word. Because the more they expected me to carry, the more my spirit cracked. The real turning point, the moment that opened my eyes, happened on the 23rd day of my marriage. I remember the exact number because I used to write small notes in my phone diary, counting each day like it was a milestone. At the time, I thought I was counting memories. Turns out I was counting the days of my captivity. That afternoon, after preparing lunch for everyone, I finally sat down to eat. My stomach had been growling for hours, but I'd learned to ignore it. When I lifted my first bite of rice, Mina walked in and pointed to the sink. "Those dishes are still there," she said casually. I'll do them after eating." She frowned. "Is this how your mother raised you? A daughter-in-law eats after finishing her duties." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I've been working since morning. Can I at least finish my lunch?" That's when my mother-in-law walked in. "Are you arguing?" she snapped. No, Margie, Don't answer back. You girls today have no shame. My eyes stung, but I blinked rapidly. Crying in front of them would only make it worse. I'm not arguing, I whispered. Good, she said sharply, grabbing my plate. She dumped my entire meal into the trash can. That moment, watching my food hit the bottom of a dirty bin, felt like someone had slapped me. We don't tolerate laziness in this house, she said. Do the dishes. Then make fresh chapati for us. After that, you can eat. Mina smirked. If there's time. They walked away laughing. I stood there frozen, my hands trembling. My stomach churned. Not from hunger anymore, but from a rising, burning anger that crawled up from somewhere deep inside me. At that exact moment, Arjun walked in. Relief washed over me. Finally, I thought, someone who will say something. My husband. My partner. He'll see what's happening. He looked from me to the sink full of dishes, then at the trash can where my food sat. Why is the kitchen such a mess? He asked. My mouth opened. Arjun, your mother, she. He sighed and shook his head. You need to learn how to manage your time better. Time management. That's what he thought the problem was. My heart cracked loudly enough that I felt the pieces scatter inside my chest. I stared at, him, searching for the man I married, but he wasn't there. Or maybe he had never been there at all. He left the kitchen, and I stood there alone, surrounded by the clinking forks, the half-washed utensils, the smell of burnt oil, and the crushing realization I was not a wife in this house. I was not a daughter-in-law. I was not family. I was their servant. And for the first time since my wedding day, a new thought entered my mind. Scary, unfamiliar, but freeing. Maybe I don't have to stay. For the next 2 days, something inside me shifted. Not dramatically, not loud enough for anyone to notice, but quietly, subtly, the way a hairline fracture appears in glass. You don't see it at first, but it's there. And once it's there, nothing stays the same. I still woke up at 5 a.m. because my mother-in-law insisted it was a tradition, though I'd never heard of such torture being holy. I still made breakfast for everyone. I still cleaned the house like it was a shrine and I was the only worshipper. But I didn't smile anymore. I didn't pretend. I didn't try to impress anyone. Inside, I went numb. Numbness is dangerous. It whispers things to you that clarity won't. And the more silent I became, the more they mistook it for obedience. They didn't realize silence is often the final stage before rebellion. On the third morning after the trash can incident, I overheard something that peeled away the last layers of tolerance in me. I was sweeping near the hallway when my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and Mina sat in the living room drinking tea. They knew I was nearby. They simply didn't think I mattered enough to speak softly. She's too slow, Mina said. I don't think she's capable of handling such a big house. We should have chosen someone more experienced. Like I was applying for a job in housekeeping. My mother-in-law clicked her tongue. Girls today don't know how to be good wives. All she does is move around like a lost shadow. She doesn't even dress properly, Mina added. I saw her wearing cotton at home. Cotton? No daughter-in-law in our family has ever worn cotton inside the house. No pride at all. I stopped sweeping. Pride. I had been breaking my body for them, and they thought the problem was cotton. But the worst part came when my father-in-law exhaled deeply and said, maybe we should send her back to her parents' house for a few days. Teach her some discipline. They need to know she's not trained well. Trained? Like a dog. My hands tightened around the broom handle until my knuckles whitened. My heart thudded so loudly that I could barely hear anything else. After a moment, Mina chuckled. Arjun doesn't mind, she said. He barely even talks to her. I think he married her only because Mom asked. My breath froze. My mother-in-law didn't deny it. She laughed softly. It doesn't matter. A woman was needed in this house. Someone had to help. Help. Not love. Not companionship. Not partnership. Help. My presence here was not because I was wanted. It was because I was useful. That day, I didn't cry, I didn't break, I didn't scream or run or plead with the universe. I simply stopped pretending. That evening, I found a quiet moment when Arjun was in our bedroom scrolling on his phone. He didn't even look up when I entered. His eyes stayed fixed on the screen as he laughed at some video. I stood there for almost 30 seconds before speaking. "Arjun," I said softly, "can we talk?" He didn't look away from his phone. "I heard something today." Still no reaction. "They were saying I'm not good enough, that I should be sent back, that I wasn't trained properly." He sighed, annoyed, not at them, but at me for interrupting whatever reel he was watching. "Don't take everything so seriously," he said, finally lowering the phone. "This is normal. Families talk. You're too sensitive." "Is it normal to throw away my food?" I asked. He shrugged. "If you didn't finish your work, they probably had a reason." The air left my lungs. "Arjun, do you even care about how they treat me?" He pressed his lips together. "You're exaggerating. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Mom works so hard for us. Dad handles business all day. Mina does her best. You're the new one here. Try to adjust." Adjust? That word was beginning to poison me. "Why is everything my responsibility?" I whispered. "Because you're the daughter-in-law," he snapped. "That's how it works. Why are you questioning traditions?" I stared at him. This man, this stranger, this person who shared my bed, my home, my future, didn't even see me as a human who needed rest, respect, or understanding. I felt like I was floating, not in peace, but in disbelief. "So if they treat me badly," I said slowly, "you won't defend me." He rubbed his forehead, frustrated. "Stop being dramatic. They're your elders. Respect them. That's it. Respect." It was always a one-way road in this house. I swallowed hard. For the first time since our wedding day, I truly looked at my husband. Not as the man I had imagined him to be, but as who he really was. Weak, spineless, conditioned to obey his family, not protect his wife. It's easy to blame the mother-in-law or sister-in-law. But the truth is, the worst betrayal comes from the one who promised to love you. That night, while they all slept, I sat alone on the balcony staring at the moon. It hung there like a witness, silent, distant, but watching everything. My palms were rough from washing endless dishes. My wrists hurt from kneading dough. My back ached from sweeping and mopping. But none of it hurt as much as knowing that I didn't belong here. In my parents' house, I was loved. Here, I was a machine. Somewhere, far below, the city hummed. Cars, voices, music, life. People were living. I was surviving. My breath trembled as a thought formed in my head. Clearer this time, stronger, undeniable. I deserve better than this. Not just better treatment, better life, better love, better respect. And slowly, as I sat there under the quiet glow of the night, something planted itself in my heart. Not rebellion, not anger, but resolve. If they wanted a servant, they chose the wrong woman. Because I was not born to be someone's maid. I was not born to break. I was not born to be silent. I didn't know it then, but that night was the birth of the version of me I had forgotten existed. The one who still had strength, dignity, pride, and fire. And soon, very soon, they would all see it. The next morning I woke up at 5 a.m. as usual, but something was different. The exhaustion was still there, woven into every bone in my body, but it no longer controlled me. Instead, there was a new, unfamiliar strength humming beneath my skin. When my mother-in-law came to wake me, I was already up, already dressed. Not in silk, not in chiffon, but in simple cotton. Comfortable, breathable cotton. She frowned immediately. "You're wearing that?" "Yes," I said calmly. Her eyes narrowed. "A daughter-in-law should look presentable." "I am presentable," I replied. her mouth opened slightly, shocked. I had spoken, not argued, but answered, something I never did before. Before she could say more, I walked past her to the kitchen. I heard her mutter something under her breath, but I didn't stop. Inside the kitchen, Mina was waiting with a list, an actual handwritten list of tasks for me to complete before lunch. "Why is this necessary?" I asked, picking it up. "So you stay organized," she said with a smirk. I looked at her straight in the eyes. "For your convenience or for my humiliation?" Her smile faded. "Excuse me?" I set the list down gently. "I can manage the kitchen myself. I don't need instructions from someone who doesn't even help." Mina's face turned red. "How dare you talk to me like that?" "I'm not talking disrespectfully," I said evenly. "I'm stating a fact." She scoffed and stormed off to complain to her mother. Within minutes, my mother-in-law arrived, her voice sharp and loud. "What is this nonsense? You're becoming arrogant." "No, Margie, I'm becoming clear." She blinked rapidly, unsure how to respond. "You can expect help from me," I continued, "but not slavery." Her face twisted. "Slavery? You think we treat you like a slave?" "Yes," I said simply. The room fell silent. Never in her life had anyone dared to speak to her that plainly. I felt my heartbeat in my ears, but I didn't back down. "You wake me at 5 a.m., you give me all the household work. You don't let me eat until I finish everything. You threw away my food. You insult me. You gossip about me. You call me untrained." Her mouth fell open. "I am your daughter-in-law, not your maid." For a moment, no one said a word. The house was so quiet you could hear the ceiling fan ticking. Finally, she hissed, "Your tongue has become too long." "No," I said. "It has finally found its voice." She stormed out, and just like that, something cracked inside this house. Not in me, in them. Because when you take away someone's power to hurt you, you become dangerous. That day, they didn't speak to me. They whispered behind closed doors. They made phone calls. They complained loudly in the hallway. But they didn't stop me. I made breakfast. I did my chores. But I didn't break my back for them. I didn't run like a frightened deer. I didn't rush to serve them before taking a sip of water. I moved with dignity. Even Arjun noticed the shift when he came home for lunch. "You seem different," he said, frowning. "I am," I replied. His discomfort was visible. He wasn't used to seeing me confident, but I wasn't performing anymore. I was living. After lunch, as I washed a few utensils, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. Seeing her name alone made my chest ache. I missed her. I missed being cared for. "Hello, Ma," I said, softening for the first time in days. "Beta, your voice. Are you okay?" Mothers always know. I hesitated. Should I cry? Should I tell her everything? No, not yet. Not until I knew exactly what I wanted to do. "I'm okay, Ma," I lied gently, just adjusting. "Your father and I miss you," she said. "Come home for a few days. It's been almost a month." Almost a month. It felt like a lifetime. I swallowed. "I'll try." When we hung up, my eyes misted, but not from sadness, from realization. My parents missed me. I missed myself. And maybe it was time to reconnect with both. Later that evening, when my mother-in-law told me to make snacks for tea, I replied, "Not today. I'm tired. You can ask Mina." Her eyes widened in horror. Mina gasped as though I had committed a crime. And I walked away, calmly, slowly, gracefully. That night, as I lay in bed, Arjun finally mustered the courage to ask, "What's going on with you?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man who claimed to love me, but couldn't stand for me. The man who shared my bed, but not my burdens. "I'm changing," I said softly, "and you should get used to it." As he stared at me in confusion, I knew something with absolute clarity. This was just the beginning. And they had no idea that the quiet daughter-in-law they underestimated was about to become their biggest problem. The next morning started differently. Not because the house changed, but because I had. I wasn't the timid girl who flinched at raised voices or the sound of footsteps behind me. I wasn't the naive wife waiting for her husband to shield her. I wasn't the dutiful daughter-in-law who mistook obedience for respect. I woke up at 5 a.m. not because they wanted me to, but because I wanted clarity. And clarity came the moment I stepped into the kitchen. As usual, my mother-in-law and Mina were sitting at the dining table. They weren't talking this time. They were waiting. For me. My mother-in-law's arms were crossed, her lips thin with disapproval. Mina's eyes glittered with the anticipation of drama. I didn't greet them, not out of disrespect, out of equalness. They weren't queens. I wasn't a servant. I walked to the sink, washed my hands, and started preparing breakfast. Not a feast, just breakfast. Parathas, sabzi, tea. Reasonable, sufficient. Not a restaurant menu. Half an hour later, everything was ready. I set the plates on the table, and, for the first time, they both ate silently. It irritated them, I could tell. They wanted me to apologize, to bend, to crumble, to be that frightened girl who let them walk all over her. But I wasn't that girl anymore. After breakfast, my mother-in-law spoke. "You've become very bold," she said slowly. "No," I replied while wiping the counter. "I've become aware." She blinked. "Aware of what?" "That I deserve respect. The same respect everyone else gets." Mina scoffed. "You think you'll get respect by talking back?" "I think I'll get respect by not accepting disrespect," I said calmly. My mother-in-law slammed her hand on the table. "In this house, the daughter-in-law follows rules." "In this house," I said softly, "the daughter-in-law isn't allowed to be human." The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. Mina stood abruptly. "You think too highly of yourself. A daughter-in-law must serve." I turned to face her. "A daughter-in-law must live, Mina, not serve." She opened her mouth to argue, but I walked away, something they had never seen me do before. Their stunned expressions were priceless. Arjun came home early that day, not to spend time with me. No, that was a luxury he never offered. He came because his mother called. That alone told me everything I needed to know. When I entered our room, Arjun was sitting on the bed, his jaw tight. "What did you say to my mother?" he demanded. I took a slow breath. "I said I'm not a servant. That's all." "What's wrong with helping? Every daughter-in-law does housework." "Housework is not the problem," I replied. "Being treated like a maid is." He sighed loudly, as though I were a child throwing tantrums. "You're exaggerating again. Did you even listen to what I said?" "Yes, and it makes no sense." He stood up. "You're turning against my family." I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. "Against your family?" "Arjun, they threw my food in the trash. They insult me every day. They wake me before sunrise. They don't let me rest. They treat me like a tool." "That's your perspective," he said coldly. My heart dropped. "Your perspective?" I whispered. "Do you think I'm lying?" Arjun rubbed his forehead. "You're making things complicated. If you just did what they asked, there wouldn't be problems." There it was. The truth. Raw, ugly, undeniable. His love had conditions. His loyalty had directions. His marriage had sides. And I wasn't on his. Something inside me hardened. Not anger, not pain. Clarity. "So you expect me to suffer in silence?" I said quietly. "I expect you to maintain peace," he replied. "Peace for whom?" I asked. "Your family, or your conscience?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Silence speaks louder than words. I walked past him, refusing to let him see how deeply his indifference cut me. But once I reached the balcony, the tears came. Not because of weakness, but because I finally accepted a painful truth. My husband would never choose me. Later that night, I overheard a conversation, one that sealed my decision to change my life forever. My mother-in-law was whispering loudly in the living room. "She's becoming a problem," she said. "If we don't control her now, she'll ruin this house." Mina added, "She's acting like she's a queen. You should send her back before she influences others." Influences others? Influences who? Arjun? He was already glued to his mother like a permanent extension. Then my father-in-law spoke quietly. "Maybe we should call her parents. Tell them she's not adjusting." My breath caught. Call my parents? Blame them? Humiliate them? No, I wouldn't let that happen. My parents were good people. Honest, kind, loving. They didn't deserve to be insulted because someone else wanted a personal slave. I felt something burn inside me. Not anger, but resolve. They wanted to send me back in shame. But I would leave with dignity. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. And not because I was weak, but because I had finally found my strength. I wasn't running away. I was walking out, head held high, heart steady, soul intact. They thought they were breaking me, but all they were doing was sharpening me. The next few days were a strange, quiet battlefield. Not the kind with screaming or shoving or chaos. The silent kind. The kind where every look carries a threat and every word hides a warning. But I didn't waver. I did the work I chose to do. Nothing more. I spoke only when necessary. I didn't bow my head. I didn't apologize for existing. And oh, how that bothered them. One evening, while I was chopping vegetables in the kitchen, Mina walked in holding a new list, longer than the previous one. "This is tomorrow's work," she said. I didn't take it. She pushed it toward me. "Take it." "Why?" I asked. "So you know what to do." "I already know what I will do," I replied. "And it's not this." Her nostrils flared. "You're refusing." "Yes." She looked stunned for a moment, then marched out dramatically to complain. As expected, the entire family gathered in the living room like judges summoned to a trial. They called me out, demanded explanations, spat accusations. I stood there quietly, letting them speak, letting their anger fill the air like smoke. When they paused, I finally said, "I am not your servant. I have a name, a life, a family who raised me with love, and I won't let you treat me like an object." My mother-in-law shot up. "How dare you?" "I dare," I said steadily, "because I'm done suffering." Arjun entered right then, frowning at the commotion. "What's happening now?" I turned to him. "Your family wants a maid, Arjun, not a daughter-in-law." He looked uncomfortable, but stayed silent. His silence was my answer. That night I made a decision that would change everything. As the house slept, I unlocked my phone and opened a new note titled, "Plan to leave." I didn't have all the steps yet. I didn't know where I would go or how long it would take. But the first line I wrote was, 1. Save money secretly. 2. Contact my parents when safe. 3. Leave with dignity. I stared at those lines until my vision blurred. I wasn't planning to run away. I was planning to reclaim my life. And the seed of escape was planted. From the moment I wrote the words, "Plan to leave" in my phone, everything in my life became divided into two paths. The life they thought I was living, and the life I was preparing for in silence. Every morning I still woke up at 5 a.m. But now, I wasn't being forced awake. I was waking myself. And that tiny difference gave me power, even if no one else knew it. I didn't change my routine outwardly. That would have raised suspicion. My mother-in-law still entered the kitchen and stared at me like I was an obligation she regretted accepting. Mina still complained about imaginary shortcomings she assigned to me. My father-in-law still acted like I was invisible unless there was work to be done. But inside, I was blooming. Quietly, steadily, determinedly. I found small ways to save money. A few notes here and there, leftover round-offs from grocery runs, change from buying vegetables, hidden in a small pouch tucked into the lining of one of my old saris. It wasn't much at first, just an Rs50 on some days, Rs20 on others. But slowly, the pouch grew heavier, and every coin was a promise to myself. One day, this will buy my freedom. One afternoon, I was wiping the dining table when Arjun walked in. He looked irritated, as though someone had asked him to do something mildly inconvenient. "We're going to my cousin's house tomorrow," he said flatly. I looked at him. "Okay." "You'll have to wear something proper," he added. "Not your cotton clothes." I bit back a laugh, not because it was funny, but because his priorities were so painfully predictable. "Fine," I said simply. He paused, frowning. "Are you okay? You've been acting different." "Different? Yes." That word again. "I'm fine," I said. "Just learning." "Learning what?" "To live with what I have." He stared at me, confused, but didn't ask anything else. Arjun never dug deeper. Deep questions required emotional effort, and emotional effort had never been his strength. The next day, we visited his cousin's house. It was a lively place, filled with laughter, conversations, and warmth that my in-laws' home lacked. His cousin's wife, Anjali, was cheerful and talkative, the kind of person who made everyone feel welcome without even trying. While the men talked in the living room, she pulled me aside into the kitchen. "You look tired," she said bluntly. "Are they making you do too much at home?" My breath faltered. No one had asked me that. Not sincerely, not gently. "I'm fine," I said out of habit. She raised an eyebrow. Don't lie to me. I've dealt with mother-in-laws like yours." That sentence alone cracked something inside me, because it meant she knew. Without explanations. Without details. She understood. "You're too quiet," she continued. "And that usually means something is wrong." I swallowed. My throat tightened. Her voice softened. "If you ever need help, come to me. I'm not far." Help. A simple word, but one I hadn't heard in so long. My eyes stung with sudden tears that I blinked away quickly. I couldn't break here. Not when I'd worked so hard to stand tall. "Thank you," I whispered. She patted my hand. "One more thing. Never let them break you. Women are not servants, no matter what the world pretends." Her words wrapped around me like armor. That night, back at home, I replayed our conversation over and over again. A stranger, almost, saw my pain more clearly than my own husband. But something more important happened that day. Anjali sent back a plate of snacks with us. Inside the foil, hidden beneath the samosas and pakoras, was a tiny folded note. I opened it in the bathroom where no one could see. It said, "If you ever need a place to stay, my door is open." 5 words. 5 little words that felt like oxygen. Hope had been a distant thing for so long that I forgot what it felt like. Now it was a folded piece of paper pressed between my fingers. And suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. The next morning, I woke up with a clearer mind than I had in weeks. I stood in front of my mirror. My face looked tired but different, stronger. My eyes had shadows beneath them, but also fire. My shoulders straightened on their own, no longer weighed down by constant commands. I whispered to my reflection, soon, I would be free. Soon, I would be seen for who I truly was. Soon, I would walk out of this house, not defeated, not broken, but victorious. But freedom required patience, so I kept saving, kept planning, kept enduring just enough to avoid suspicion. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was preparing, and that made all the difference. The days that followed blurred into a pattern of silent resistance, not loud rebellions, not confrontations, just defiance in small doses. I said no more often. I stopped flinching at raised voices. I stopped running every time they snapped their fingers. And the more I reclaimed myself, the more desperate they became to put me back in place. One evening, everything escalated. It started with something as simple as tea. My mother-in-law called out from the living room, "Bring tea for everyone." I was already exhausted. I had spent the entire day doing chores while the rest of them sat around chatting. My back hurt. My head throbbed. So I said, I'll bring it in 10 minutes. Dead silence, as if I had confessed a crime. She marched into the kitchen, eyes blazing. When I say bring tea, you bring tea, she snapped. I said I will, I replied, my tone steady. In 10 minutes. You don't talk back to me. I'm not talking back. I'm telling you my limit. Her mouth twisted into something ugly. Your limit? A daughter-in-law has no limits. She obeys. I inhaled slowly. Respect works both ways. And that's when she did something I will never forget. She grabbed the steel glass near the stove and slammed it onto the counter so hard that it echoed through the entire house. Enough, she shouted. You think you're some queen? You're nothing here. Nothing. I froze. Not because of fear, because something snapped inside me. A small, final thread holding my patience together. Automatically, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Meena ran into the kitchen, drawn by the noise. Arjun followed. And just like that, the courtroom drama began. What's wrong, Ma? Arjun asked. She disrespected me, his mother cried. She refuses to listen. She's arrogant. Meena stepped forward like a parrot. She thinks she's better than us. I turned to my husband, calm, steady. I said I needed 10 minutes before making tea. Arjun frowned. Why would you delay it? They asked nicely. Nicely? A bitter laugh echoed inside me. Arjun, I said, I am tired. I needed a moment. He shook his head. You're overreacting again. I stared at him, feeling disbelief turn into something colder. Acceptance. I didn't expect him to take my side. But I had hoped, naively, that he'd at least understand, that he'd show basic empathy. But no, he didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as someone who needed to be managed. His next words cemented that truth. You need to learn how to talk to elders, he said sternly, and follow instructions. This behavior is unacceptable. Unacceptable. Funny. So many things in this house were unacceptable, but none of those ever seemed to bother him. You're choosing them over me, I said quietly. He didn't even blink. I'm choosing what's right. I felt my breath leave my body. Not in pain, not in anger, in clarity. I looked around the kitchen, the place where I'd spent countless hours cooking, cleaning, sweating, bending, but never belonging. I looked at each of their faces. Disapproval, judgment, entitlement, and suddenly, I felt nothing for any of them. No fear, no heartbreak, not even disappointment. Just nothing. That emptiness was pure freedom. My mother-in-law stepped closer. If you don't adjust, we'll have to talk to your parents. There it was, the threat. My hands stopped trembling. My breath steadied. I spoke clearly, calmly, without blinking. You don't need to call them. She paused. What? I met her eyes, unflinching. I'll call them myself. The room froze. Arjun stared at me, confused. My mother-in-law looked startled. Meena's jaw dropped. They didn't understand the meaning behind my words yet. But soon, they would. Because this wasn't fear speaking. It was decision. Pure, final, irreversible. The breaking point had arrived. And I wasn't the one breaking. I didn't call my parents that night, not because I was scared, not because I changed my mind, but because decisions like this require a calm mind, not one shaken by a shouting match. So instead I went to our room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. My reflection in the dresser mirror stared back at me, eyes puffy but steady, shoulders tired but unshaken. It was the strangest thing. Even though everything inside the house felt heavy and suffocating, inside me, there was a strange lightness, like the air right before a storm, a quiet, thrilling pressure. Arjun eventually came into the room. He didn't say sorry. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't even look at me for the first few minutes. He just changed his shirt, checked his phone, and waited for me to speak first. Because in his mind, I was the problem. My silence must have irritated him. "Look," he finally said, "I don't know what's gotten into you lately." I didn't reply. "You're behaving differently. It's not right." Still nothing. He sighed loudly. "I'm talking to you." I turned my head slowly. "And what do you want to say, Arjun?" "That you need to be more respectful. My parents are elders. They deserve obedience." "Respect," I corrected softly, "is earned." His jaw tightened. "Stop twisting words. You need to adjust. Every marriage has challenges. You can't run away from responsibilities." "I'm not running," I said. "Then behave properly." I looked at him for a long, painful second. This man truly believed the problem was me, not his family's cruelty, not the insult, not the constant disrespect. Just me. "I'm done talking tonight," I said finally, "and I don't want to argue." "Then promise me you won't act like this again." I laughed softly, not out of humor, but disbelief. "Good night, Arjun." I turned away. And that was the first night he slept angry, while I slept peacefully, because my heart had already stepped out of this house. Morning came, same house, same suffocating air, but something was different. I wasn't afraid anymore. When I entered the kitchen, I didn't look down. I didn't walk carefully like a servant afraid of making noise. I didn't shrink under my mother-in-law's stare. I looked her straight in the eyes. "Good morning," I said politely, but not submissively. She didn't respond. That was fine. I made breakfast. Simple, not extravagant. When Mina complained about the sabzi being too plain, I smiled slightly. "You can add more spices if you want," I said. Her mouth dropped. She didn't expect logic. She expected compliance. My father-in-law muttered, "Girls today have no manners." I ignored it. For the first time, I ate breakfast with them. Usually they made me wait until everyone finished, but today, I took my plate, sat down at the table, and started eating. Everything went silent. "You're eating before us?" my mother-in-law asked, horrified. "I cooked," I replied, "and I'm hungry. You will wait." "Not today," I said calmly. Arjun entered the dining room at that moment. "What's happening?" "She's breaking traditions," his mother hissed. Arjun looked at me. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I'm a human being," I said simply. "Not a machine." They stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. After breakfast, I went to the balcony and finally dialed the number I had been avoiding, not because I didn't want to call, but because I knew what it would set into motion. My mother picked up on the second ring. "Hello?" "Ma." My voice cracked unexpectedly. "Beta, are you all right? You sound strange." I closed my eyes. This was the moment. "Ma," I whispered, "I want to come home." Silence. And then her breath trembled. "Come home," she said immediately. "Right now. Don't ask. Don't wait. Just come." Tears filled my eyes. "Ma, I can't just walk out. I need to plan." "No planning," she said firmly. "Just come, Beta." Her urgency made my heart ache. "Ma." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I'll come soon. Very soon." "When?" "I'll tell you. But please, don't tell anyone. Not even Papa." "Of course," she whispered. "Just promise me one thing." "Yes?" "That you won't let anyone hurt you. Not even for one more day." A tear rolled down my cheek. "I promise." When the call ended, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. I wasn't trapped. I wasn't helpless. I wasn't alone. I had a home. I had love waiting for me. I had a place to go. And now, the countdown had officially begun. When I re-entered the living room, all three of them were staring at me. My mother-in-law, father-in-law, and Mina. Their expressions were sharp, suspicious. My mother-in-law stood up. "Who are you talking to?" "My mother," I replied. "Why?" she asked immediately, like it was a crime. Because I wanted to, I said simply. You don't talk to your parents without telling us first, she snapped. My eyebrows rose. Why? Is this jail? Her eyes widened in shock. How dare you? How dare you? I interrupted softly. Think you can control who I speak to? Arjun walked in just then. What's happening? His mother pointed at me dramatically. She's talking back to me again. Arjun sighed. Why can't you just keep quiet? That was it. The final straw. The last weight that tipped the scale. Because silence, I said slowly, is how I lost myself in this house. They stared at me, shocked, offended, confused. But I had already made my choice. I was leaving. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon, very soon. And nothing, not their insults, not their control, not Arjun's indifference, could stop me now. The chains were already broken, and the woman they tried to break, she was waking up. After the phone call with my mother, something shifted inside me. Not a tiny shift, not a whisper, but a solid decision that felt like steel settling into my bones. I was leaving, not as a coward, not as a runaway, but as a woman choosing her own dignity over someone else's dominance. But walking out of a house like this requires precision. These people didn't just want obedience, they wanted control. And people who crave control become dangerous when they sense they're losing it. So I moved carefully, not fearfully, strategically. That afternoon, I went about my day quietly, almost gently. Not because I wanted to serve them, but because I didn't want them to notice the storm building inside me. While preparing lunch, I made sure to cook just enough. Not a buffet. I ate with them. I cleaned what I used. I stayed polite, efficient, neutral. A perfect mask. My mother-in-law watched me suspiciously the whole time. She wasn't used to my calmness. She didn't understand it. And what people don't understand, they fear. Are you trying to pretend you're good? Mina muttered. I looked at her without blinking. I don't pretend. That silence afterward was delicious. If looks could kill, I would have died 100 times that day. But instead, their glares fed me motivation. Arjun came home early from work again. Not because he cared about me. No, that would require emotional intelligence, but because his mother probably called him to handle me. He knocked on the doorframe of our room. We need to talk. I was folding my saris, carefully, neatly, methodically. Without looking up, I said, Then talk? He exhaled sharply. Why are you acting like this? Like what? I asked. Like you don't care anymore. I looked up slowly, meeting his eyes. I don't. His face twitched. What does that mean? It means, I said calmly, that I'm done fighting for a place in this house. But you have a place. No, I whispered, I have a role. A servant has a role too. That doesn't mean they belong. He swallowed. I saw the flicker of panic in his eyes. Not because he feared losing me, but because he feared losing control of the comfortable system his family created. He sat on the edge of the bed, frustrated. You're overthinking everything. You just need time to adjust. I laughed under my breath. I've given this place time, Arjun. It only took. It never gave. So, what now? He asked. What are you planning to do? I folded the last sari and placed it inside the cupboard. For now, I said softly, I plan to survive. He frowned. And after that? I smiled. You'll know when everyone does. Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe. But he didn't ask again. He didn't push. He just left the room, confused and uncomfortable. And that was good. Confusion meant distraction. Distraction meant space. Space I needed. That night, while everyone slept, I pulled out my secret pouch of savings. It wasn't much. Maybe enough for travel and a few weeks of living. But freedom doesn't always require wealth. Sometimes all it needs is courage and timing. I counted the money quietly. Rs 3,870. plus another R200 hidden in a book. Rs 4,070 total. Not enough for a life, but enough to start one. After counting, I hid the pouch deeper this time, inside the inner lining of an old blouse I knew no one would touch. Then I stood by the window, staring at the moon. It looked bigger than usual, fuller, brighter, almost like it was watching over me. A strange comfort wrapped around me. For the first time since I married into this house, I felt hopeful. I had a plan. I had support. I had strength. And soon, I would have freedom. The countdown had begun, and I had no intention of stopping it. Every story has a moment so sharp, so cruel, so unforgettable, that it becomes the turning point, the moment that pushes you from endurance to action. Mine came sooner than expected. It happened 3 days after I called my mother. That morning began like any other. Chores, glares, insults disguised as tradition, the usual. But around noon, Mina barged into the kitchen with a pile of clothes in her hands. Dirty ones, sweaty ones, stained ones. "Wash these," she said, dropping them onto the counter. I didn't move. She frowned. "Did you hear me?" "Yes," I said. "And no." "No." I turned to her slowly. "No, I won't wash them. You're an adult. Wash your own clothes." Shock spread across her face like a stain. "You're refusing again?" "Yes." She glared at me. "I'll tell Ma." "Go ahead." I didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't bother pretending to care. She stormed out. A few minutes later, my mother-in-law appeared, her face twisted in rage. "Why won't you wash the clothes?" she asked loudly. "Because they're not mine," I replied. "You are the daughter-in-law." "I am not your personal maid." Her hand lifted mid-air. Whether to point or slap, I couldn't tell. But before she could decide, I stepped back. "Don't," I warned softly. "Don't touch me." She froze. Not because of fear, because of shock. No one had ever told her don't. Her voice rose like a storm. "You have no respect, no upbringing, no shame." My father-in-law joined in. "Throw her out if she doesn't want to follow rules." Mina added, "Call her parents. Tell them they failed." And then Arjun entered the scene, drawn by their shouting. "What happened now?" he asked, irritated, as though my existence was an inconvenience. "She's refusing to follow our rules," his mother cried. "She's disrespecting us," Mina added. Arjun turned to me. "Why are you doing this? Why can't you just cooperate?" Cooperate. Funny word. Used by people who want obedience without offering respect. I inhaled deeply, and then it happened. My mother-in-law stepped forward and shouted, "You are nothing without us. Your parents should be ashamed they raised such a useless daughter." Silence, cold, heavy, crushing. The words hit me like a slap across my soul. But this time I didn't crumble. This time, I smiled. Not out of happiness, out of clarity. I walked toward her slowly and said, word by word, "Don't you ever speak of my parents again." She blinked rapidly, caught off guard. "My parents raised me with love," I continued, "with respect, with dignity. And that's why I'm still standing here, not broken, not defeated, just deciding." "Deciding what?" Arjun demanded. I looked at him, then at all of them, and allowed myself the smallest, most peaceful smile. Deciding when I'll leave this house. The room exploded into chaos. "What do you mean leave? Where will you go? You can't. You won't. She's going mad. Stop her." But I didn't hear any of it. I turned and walked toward my room, calm, steady, free. My heart wasn't pounding. My hands weren't shaking. My breath wasn't trembling. For the first time ever, I felt powerful. Because they didn't throw me out. They didn't decide my worth. They didn't end my story. I decided. And soon, very soon, I would walk out of this house, not broken, but reborn. After I said the words, I'm deciding when I'll leave this house. The atmosphere changed, not just in the room, in the entire house. It was like someone had pulled a thick curtain away from a window. For the first time, all of us could see the truth clearly. They were afraid. Not afraid of losing me. Afraid of losing control. They didn't see me as a loved one. They saw me as labor. And now their labor was threatening to walk away. The next day was strangely quiet. No raised voices. No shouting my name from across rooms. No dramatic slamming of utensils in the kitchen to summon me. Just silence. When I entered the kitchen that morning, my mother-in-law was already there, standing near the stove, trying to make tea herself. She fumbled with the gas lighter, annoyed. "You're late," she muttered. "It's 6 a.m., I said calmly. "I'm not late. I just didn't wake up at 5. She shot me a sharp look. A daughter-in-law should wake before everyone. "A daughter-in-law," I replied, "is a human, not an alarm clock." Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't respond. Instead, she moved aside and let me take over the stove. I made tea. She watched. But something had changed in her gaze. It didn't hold superiority anymore. It held uncertainty. Arjun stayed away from me for most of the day, as if proximity might force him to confront something he wasn't ready for. We only crossed paths briefly at lunch. He sat at the table and expected his plate, as usual. Normally, I would have wordlessly handed it to him, already filled with food. Today, I simply placed an empty plate in front of him, then sat down with my own. He stared at it. "You didn't serve my food." "You have hands," I said quietly. "Use them." He frowned. "What's this attitude?" "It's not attitude," I replied. "It's a quality." He looked around the table, at his parents, at Mina, as if expecting them to intervene. But none of them said a word. They didn't understand this version of me. They didn't know how to control her. And that confusion made them hesitate. So Arjun reluctantly got up and served himself. Something small. Something simple. But to me, it felt monumental. He was finally doing a basic task he should have always done. Not because he understood, because he had no choice. That evening, I locked the bedroom door and began packing. Not with a suitcase, not yet. With choices. I took out the clothes I knew I would need once I left, practical ones. Comfortable Curtis, worn-in leggings, a couple of saris my mother had gifted me, simple nightwear. I placed them all together on one side of the cupboard. I took my important documents, Aadhaar card, bank passbook, educational certificates, and slid them into a single folder. That folder I tucked inside my handbag, which I started keeping closer, to me at all times. I checked my secret stash of money again. Still there? Still safe? $4,070 and a plan. I didn't physically pack a suitcase. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I packed in my mind. I rehearsed the steps. Wake up early, dress quietly, take handbag and one lightweight bag of clothes. Walk out without looking back. Book a cab or auto on the main road. Go straight to the railway station. Buy a ticket to my parents' town. Call Ma only once I'm on the train. I went through that plan over and over until it became muscle memory. I didn't know which day it would be, but I knew that when the day came, I wouldn't freeze. I wouldn't doubt. I wouldn't falter. I'd just follow the steps. Later that night, as I sat on the balcony, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Anjali. "Are you okay?" I stared at the screen. For a moment, I considered lying. But what was the point? "No," I typed back. "But I will be soon." A few seconds later, "If you need to leave, come here first. It's safer than going straight home if they cause trouble." My throat tightened, my vision blurred. Even from afar, she understood the risks. Because women like her had seen this story play out too many times. "Thank you," I replied. "I might need that." "I'll be ready." Just 3 words. But to me, they felt like a safety net. No matter what happened in this house, I had options. I had people. And that made me dangerous. Not because I wanted revenge, because I finally had choices. The next morning, something unexpected happened. My mother-in-law knocked on my bedroom door. It wasn't a polite knock. It still carried command. But it wasn't the usual loud banging that said, "Get up and work." This one said, "We need to talk." I opened the door. She stood there with a plate of halwa in her hands. Halwa. Sweet, warm, fragrant. The irony almost made me laugh. "For you?" she said stiffly. I stared at the plate, then at her. "For what?" I asked. "What do you mean, for what? A mother can't give her daughter-in-law something sweet." My chest tightened, not with warmth, with anger. Because this wasn't love. This wasn't care. This was performance. "What do you want?" I asked quietly. Her face twisted. "What makes you think I want something?" "Because you don't do anything without a reason," I said. "So what is it?" She exhaled sharply. "Fine, sit. We need to talk." I didn't invite her in. She walked in anyway and sat at the edge of the bed like she owned every square inch of this house, including the space where I slept. I sat on the chair near the dresser, facing her. She pushed the plate of halwa closer. "Eat." "I'll eat later," I said. "Eat now," she insisted. I didn't touch it. I just looked at her. Finally, she dropped the pretense. "Why are you saying you'll leave?" She asked. "What will people say? That our daughter-in-law ran away? That our home is bad?" "Yes," I said honestly. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "You asked what people will say. That's what they'll say. Because it's true." Her nostrils flared. "You are not some queen who can just walk out when she wants." I smiled slightly. "Watch me." "You think we need you?" She snapped. "We managed before you. We'll manage after you." "I know," I replied. "You never needed me. You just needed someone to do the work." Silence. A hard, revealing silence. "You're overreacting," she muttered. "Every home is like this." "No," I said firmly. "Every home is not like this. My parents' home is not like this. Angeli's is not like this. Homes where there's respect are not like this." She scoffed. "Respect? Respect? That's all you modern girls talk about." "Because that's all we rarely get," I shot back. Her jaw tightened. "If you leave, don't come back." I wasn't planning to. That shook her. The game, according to her, was simple. Use emotional blackmail, threaten banishment, scare me into submission. But I wasn't scared anymore. She tried another tactic. "What will you tell your parents?" she demanded. "That we tortured you? That we starved you? That we made you work like a maid?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Because that's exactly what you did." Her eyes widened. She wasn't used to her own actions being called by their real name. "Shh," she hissed. "You're ungrateful. After everything we've done for you." I tilted my head. "What have you done for me?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. "Paid for my education?" "No." "Supported my dreams?" "No." "Respected my feelings?" "No." "You gave me your son," society would say, as if he were a prize, as if he were a trophy, as if his presence alone justified my suffering. But a man who cannot stand by his wife is not a prize. He's a burden. "If you want me to change my decision," I said quietly, "you need to accept that I deserve to be treated as a person. Not a servant, not a tool. A person." Her lips curled. "You're too proud." "Yes," I said, "and I finally like that about myself." She stood abruptly. "This is your last chance," she said coldly. "Behave, adjust, or leave." "That," I replied, meeting her gaze, "is the first honest thing you've said to me." She stormed out, slamming the door. The plate of halwa remained on the bed, untouched. I picked it up, walked to the balcony, and set it on the small table outside. Let the ants have it. They at least didn't pretend to care before consuming. That evening, Arjun tried his own performance. He came home with a small box of sweets and a plastic bag. "I brought you something," he said. I looked up from the book I was pretending to read. He held up the plastic bag first. Inside was a bright, overly ornate sari, heavy embroidery, jingling borders. The kind of sari that looked expensive but suffocated the body. "For you," he said. I didn't take it. He frowned. "What now?" "Why?" I asked. "What do you mean, why? A husband can't gift his wife something." I felt tired. So tired. "Yes, he can," I said. "If it's not a replacement for respect?" He sighed dramatically. "You're making this difficult." "No," I said softly. "I'm just refusing to make it easy for you to ignore the real issue." He sat down heavily. "Why can't we just move on from all that? Start fresh?" I stared at him. "Will your mother apologize?" I asked. "For throwing my food away? For talking about sending me back like I'm luggage? For insulting my parents?" He shifted uncomfortably. "She's old. You can't expect her to change." "So, you expect me to change?" I asked. He didn't respond. "You want me to accept gifts?" I continued. "To wear your sari, smile in front of relatives, act like everything is fine, while still being treated like a servant." "That's not what I'm saying." "That's exactly what you're saying." The silence stretched between us. Finally, he whispered, "What do you want then?" I took a deep breath. "I want a life where I'm seen," I said. "Where I'm heard. Where I'm not just a pair of hands to cook, clean, wash, and serve. I want a husband who stands next to me, not behind his mother." He swallowed. I don't know if I can be that person." There it was. The most honest sentence he'd ever spoken. I nodded slowly. "Then I can't be here." His eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Yes, Arjun," I said. "I am." He sank back in shock, as if he truly believed I'd never go through with it. But in my heart, the decision was no longer a question. It was a date I hadn't yet circled on the calendar. Soon, I thought. Very soon. I looked at the garish sari still sitting on the bed. Bright, loud, suffocating, just like this house. And I knew one thing for sure. When I leave, I will not be wearing that. By the time a week had passed, I had mastered the art of quiet rebellion. I wasn't provoking them. I wasn't arguing with them. I wasn't even responding to most of their passive-aggressive comments. I smiled when needed, worked when necessary, and stayed invisible when I wanted. That confused them more than open defiance ever could. Because how do you control someone who no longer reacts? My mother-in-law kept watching me like a hawk, waiting for the moment I broke down or came to my senses. Mina whispered loudly with exaggerated pity. "She'll apologize soon. These dramatic types always do." My father-in-law made it his mission to criticize everything I did. The way I cut vegetables, the way I cleaned the table, the way I served water, the way I walked. But his words rolled off me like water off stone. They didn't know I was already gone. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. They were yelling at a ghost. On Thursday morning, while Arjun was leaving for work, he paused at the door. "You're really not changing your decision?" he asked. "No." "You actually plan on walking out?" "Yes." He rubbed his forehead. "This is crazy. Where will you go?" "Home," I said, "to my parents." "And what will you tell them?" "The truth." He turned pale. Those two words scared him more than anything else. Because deep down, he knew his family's treatment couldn't survive sunlight. Truth was their greatest enemy. He stepped closer. "Just give me time," he said. "I'll talk to them." "You've had a month," I replied. "You didn't talk. You watched." He opened his mouth and shut it. He had no defense. As he left, he muttered under his breath, "If you go, I don't know what will happen." "Then this is your chance to change it," I said. But he didn't turn around. He never did. Later that afternoon, I received a message from Anjali. "If you leave, let me know the night before. I'll keep a room ready." I stared at the words, my heart swelling with a strange combination of sadness and relief. Someone cared. Not my husband. Not my in-laws. Someone who wasn't obligated to care. Cared anyway. I replied, "It will be soon." She sent a heart emoji back. Sometimes support doesn't have to be loud. A small message is enough to remind you that you're not walking alone. That evening, an opportunity arrived unexpectedly. My mother-in-law received a phone call from a distant relative. There was a wedding next week, and the entire family was invited. The entire family. She gasped dramatically after ending the call. "Oh, we must go," she said to my father-in-law. "Everyone will be there." They talked about the event for 20 minutes. Clothes, relatives, decor, gossip, food. No one mentioned me. But I didn't mind. Because when Mina said, "We'll have to leave early in the morning on Tuesday," something inside me clicked. Tuesday? They would all be out of the house for several hours. Maybe the entire day. My breath caught, excitement curling through me like a spark catching flame. Here it was. The moment I'd been waiting for. The perfect opportunity. But I didn't show anything on my face. I kept chopping vegetables as if none of this mattered. Inside, though, this is it. This is the day. This is freedom. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, silently repeating, Tuesday, Tuesday, Tuesday. Every breath, every heartbeat, every thought. Tuesday. The next morning, I woke before the alarm, not out of stress, out of adrenaline. When Arjun sat up beside me, he said, "You look different." "I am," I replied. He didn't ask more. He never did. Because deep inside, he knew if he dug deeper, he might hear something he didn't want to know. I went through the day with quiet focus. I washed only my clothes. I packed only my things in a mental pile. I spoke only polite sentences. I took note of their travel schedule carefully. "We'll leave at 6:30 a.m. sharp," my mother-in-law declared. "We must reach the venue before lunch." 6:30 a.m. Perfect. The minute the clock struck 6:31, I would begin. I wasn't running away in shame. I was walking out with intention. A slight smile tugged at my lips. Freedom wasn't a dream anymore. It had a date, a time, a plan. Tuesday? Just 4 days away. And I was ready. The next 4 days were a masterclass in acting. Not acting like I was happy. No, that would have been too dramatic. Acting like I didn't care. Like I was merely floating through routine. Unbothered, unattached, unmoved. Because the last thing I needed was suspicion. If even one of them, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, or Mina, sensed that I was preparing to leave, they would try to stop me, not because they valued me, but because they valued labor. So I played the role with precision. I worked just enough, talked just enough, smiled just enough. Not too much, not too little. Enough to stay undetected. On Friday, while sweeping the hallway, I overheard my in-laws discussing wedding outfits again. It was shocking how much they cared about external appearances. Clothes, status, gossip, while ignoring the collapsing relationships inside their own home. "Should we take the gold necklace set?" my mother-in-law asked. Yes, my father-in-law replied. "Everyone must see we're still respected." Still respected? The irony nearly made me laugh. Respect was the one thing missing from this house. But let them have their illusions. The louder the show, the emptier the reality. On Saturday, I quietly transferred around $2,000 from my small savings pouch to a hidden pocket inside my handbag, just in case the pouch was discovered. On Sunday, I washed and folded my most important clothes and placed them at the top of the cupboard to make them easy to grab. On Monday night, I packed a tiny bag, the size of a lunch carrier, with essentials. A toothbrush, a small soap, innerwear, my documents folder, a pair of clothes, the pouch of money, my phone charger, just enough to start a new life without suspicion. I tucked the bag behind a stack of old bed sheets at the bottom of the cupboard. They never cleaned that area. They never would. At 2:30 a.m. on Tuesday, while the house slept, I took the bag out one last time, checked everything inside, and whispered, "Tomorrow." Morning came slowly. I lay awake long before dawn, staring at the faint light creeping across the ceiling. When the alarm rang at 5:15 a.m., I switched it off instantly. Today was the day. My heartbeat was steady. My hands were calm. My mind was clear. I put on a simple kurti and leggings, comfortable for travel. Then I tied my hair neatly, washed my face, and opened the door. The house was quiet except for footsteps and occasional voices. They were all getting ready for the wedding. I walked past their rooms, hearing snippets of conversation. "I told you to iron that sari. Where is my cufflink box? We're getting late. Hurry up." Chaos. Perfect. I walked into the kitchen as usual and made tea for them, not out of duty, but out of strategy. Let them think today is normal. My mother-in-law entered the kitchen, fully dressed, jewelry jingling. "Make the paratas fast," she said. "I will," I said politely. She didn't notice the lack of resentment in my voice. She didn't notice the quiet finality. People who believe you belong to them rarely notice when you're slipping away. By 6:15 a.m., breakfast was done. The car was packed. Everyone was dressed. The house buzzed with rushed energy. At 6:27 a.m., Mina shouted, "Close the back gate, and don't forget to lock the main door after we leave." At 6:29 a.m., my father-in-law said, "Take care of the house." At 6:30 a.m., Arjun looked at me once, only once, and said, "We'll talk when I get back." I nodded. Inside I whispered, "No, we won't." At 6:31 a.m., the car pulled out of the driveway. At 6:32 a.m., silence. Beautiful, liberating silence. They were gone. The house was empty, and I was free. I closed the main gate behind them, locked it, then locked the main door behind myself. Not to protect the house, but to protect my escape. I walked to my room, heart steady, feet light. I grabbed the tiny packed bag. I slung my handbag over my shoulder. I took one last look at the room I slept in for a month. No sadness, no fear, no regret, just relief. Pure, unmistakable relief. I whispered into the air, for the walls, the windows, the ghosts of my tears. I'm done. Then I walked out of the house I had once entered as a bride and stepped into the world as a woman reclaiming her life. I stepped out of the gate with my small bag, and for a moment, I just stood there, breathing. Deep, full breaths. Breaths that actually reached my lungs for the first time in weeks. The early morning air was cool, quiet, unburdened. The sun was still rising, a soft gold seeping into the world like hope spilling over everything. For the first time since my marriage, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't rushing to serve. I wasn't worried about whispers or orders or insults. I existed. Simply existed. And it felt like the first taste of life after drowning. I tightened my grip on the bag and began walking toward the main road. Each step felt like shedding weight, layers and layers of suffocating expectations falling away behind me. With every foot forward, I whispered inside, "This step is mine. This breath is mine. This life is mine." By the time I reached the main road, my heart was steady. I flagged down an auto. The driver, an older man with a tired but kind face, asked, "Where to, Betty?" I inhaled and said the address I'd memorized. Shiv Colony, near the temple. Anjali's home. He nodded. "Sit, Betty. Let's go." As the auto pulled away from the neighborhood, I didn't look back at the house I'd been trapped in. Not even once. That chapter was over. Burned. Done. All that remained was forward. The ride took 20 minutes, but it felt like seconds. My mind was racing through everything at once. My mother's voice, my father's face, my future, my strength. I wasn't scared. Fear had no place left inside me. The auto stopped in front of a small, warm-looking house with a green gate and bougainvillea vines creeping across the boundary wall. Before I could even lift a hand to ring the bell, the door opened. Anjali was standing there wearing a soft cotton sari, hair tied loosely, eyes filled with concern, and something even more powerful. Pride. "You came?" she said softly. I nodded once. She stepped aside. "Come inside. You're safe now." Safe. I swallowed hard as I entered her home. It wasn't big, just 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a small kitchen, but it felt warmer than my in-laws' mansion ever had. There were family photos on the wall, laughter frozen in frames, scented candles in corners, a living room couch with actual softness, a kitchen with sunlight, not tension. "Sit," she said, placing a glass of water in front of me. My hands trembled, not from fear but from relief. "Drink first." I took the glass and sipped. The water felt like it washed away days of stress. She sat beside me. "Tell me." I closed my eyes for a second, not to hide tears. There were none. Just to gather myself. Then I spoke. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just truthfully. I told her everything. The chores, the insults, the food thrown away, the control, the threats, the loneliness, the silence of my husband. She listened without interrupting, without judging, with the stillness of someone who understood pain deeply. When I finished, she took my hand. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. "You're brave." "Brave?" I whispered. "Yes. Most women stay. You left." My chest tightened. I didn't know how badly I needed to hear that. "You can stay here as long as you want," she continued. "No pressure, no questions." "Thank you," I whispered. "Do you want to call your mother now?" I nodded. "Yes." "Use my phone," she said gently, "just in case they try calling yours." I stared at her for a moment. This woman who owed me nothing, yet gave me everything I needed in the moment I needed it most. Kindness is louder than cruelty. It stays longer. It hits deeper. She handed me the phone. I dialed my mother's number. "Hello?" Her voice sounded worried already. "Ma." My voice cracked. "Beta, are you okay? Where are you?" I swallowed hard. I left. Silence. Then, "Good," she said. "Good, Beta. Come home." A tear finally slipped down my cheek. "I'm coming today," I whispered. "I'm safe." "Thank God," she breathed. "Your father is here. We're both waiting." I ended the call slowly. Anjali squeezed my shoulder. "We'll leave for the station in a little while. Rest first." I sat back, finally allowing my body to loosen. My muscles unclenched. My breath deepened. My shoulders dropped. For the first time, I wasn't bracing myself for the next insult. I closed my eyes, letting her home embrace me. I was safe. I was free. I was on my way home. Anjali insisted I rest for at least an hour. At first, I thought I wouldn't be able to sleep. My mind had been racing for days, planning, preparing, rehearsing my escape. But the moment I lay down on the small guest bed, exhaustion pulled me under like a wave. It wasn't just physical exhaustion. It was the emotional weight of weeks finally lifting. I woke up to the gentle sound of a door opening. Anjali peeked in. "You're awake? Good. I made chai." I nodded, sitting up. "Thank you." When I stepped into the kitchen, the smell of fresh chai wrapped around me like a hug. I hadn't realized how much I missed the scent of tea, made without stress, without demands, without orders, shouted from another room. I sat at the small dining table as she handed me a cup. "Feeling better?" she asked. "Yes," I said honestly. "Later," she smiled. That's what freedom feels like. After finishing the tea, I checked my phone. There were 7 missed calls from Arjun, 3 from my mother-in-law, 5 messages, all unread. Predictable. Anjali saw the look on my face. "Are they calling you already?" "Yes." "Don't answer?" "I won't." She nodded, satisfied. We left for the train station around 11 a.m. Anjali's husband had already left for work, so she drove me herself in their small car. The moment I sat inside, I felt the strangest ache in my chest. This was what a normal life felt like. Kind people, warm conversations, calmness.
Not chaos hidden behind respectability. As she drove, she asked gently, Do you think Arjun will come looking for you? No, I said. He won't. He cares more about peace at home than about me. Then they'll call your parents. I know. What will you do when they do? I looked out the window, watching buildings blur past. I'll tell my parents everything, I said, and I'll let them decide how to handle the conversation. You're strong, she said quietly. I smiled faintly. I'm learning. At the station, she walked with me to the ticket counter. What time is the next train? She asked the clerk. 11:50 a.m., he replied. Platform 3. That's 25 minutes, she said. Perfect. I bought the ticket with money from my pouch. It felt symbolic, using the money I saved from their house to finance my journey away from it. We walked to Platform 3. Together, people moved around us, families, couples, vendors, children running with balloons tied to their wrists. I watched them, feeling strangely invisible. Not in a sad way, in a peaceful way, no. One here knew me, no one judged me, no one watched my footsteps. I was just another woman, catching a train home. When the train finally arrived, the heavy engine rumbling through the air, Anjali turned to me. You're going to be okay, she said. I know, I replied. You're brave. Thank you for everything, I whispered. She pulled me into a tight hug. Text me when you reach home. I will. I stepped onto the train, found a window seat, placed my bag beside me, and finally exhaled. As the train began moving, I watched the station drift away. Then the city. Then the last trace of the life I was leaving behind. It felt surreal, like walking out of a nightmare into the morning sunlight. My heartbeat slowed, my shoulders softened, rested my head against the window. The train rattled gently along the tracks, carrying me home, to my parents, to safety, to peace, to myself. I didn't know what waited for me next, what conversations, what decisions, what consequences. But I knew one thing with certainty: whatever comes next, I will face it on my terms. The girl who entered her in-laws' house had been naive. The woman leaving it, she was unbreakable. The train screeched to a stop at my hometown station with a familiar metallic groan. The moment the doors opened, warm, humid air rushed in, carrying the scent of roadside tea stalls, and the faint aroma of jasmine from the flower vendors nearby. It hit me like a memory. I'd forgotten to miss home, not a place, a feeling. I stepped out onto the platform with my bag slung over my shoulder. My legs trembled, but not from fear, from relief. I scanned the crowd, searching for the two faces that had loved me long before I knew what marriage meant. And then I saw them. My father stood near a pillar, slightly hunched, worry etched deep into his forehead. His hair had more gray strands than before. My mother stood beside him, clutching the end of her sorry eyes, scanning the crowd anxiously. The moment they spotted me, their expressions shifted from fear to shock, to overwhelming relief. My mother rushed toward me first, practically running. She grabbed me in a fierce hug, the kind only a mother can give, tight, warm, trembling. My child, she whispered into my hair. You're here, you're home. I closed my eyes as tears finally spilled over, soaking her shoulder. Not tears of sadness, tears of safety. My father placed a gentle hand on my head. We were waiting, he said softly. Welcome home, Beta. For the first time in weeks, I didn't have to pretend I was okay. I didn't have to hide my pain, or measure my words, or brace for insults. I was with the people who saw me, not my utility, not my obedience, not my silence. Me. My mother pulled back, cupping my face. You've lost weight, she murmured, her voice breaking. You didn't eat properly there, did you? I swallowed hard. No, Ma. She hugged me again. You don't have to explain anything today. Just come home. My father picked up my bag without a word. He didn't ask questions. He didn't demand explanations. He just walked ahead, creating a small protective space around us as we made our way out of the station. Outside, the world moved on, rickshaws honking, people bargaining with vendors, kids holding their father's hands. But inside, everything felt still, safe, quiet. Mine. When we reached home, my mother took me straight to the kitchen table and made me sit down. You must be hungry, she said as she rushed around. I made pua and chai, and if you want roti sabzi, Ma, I interrupted gently, smiling through tears. I can't eat the whole kitchen. She laughed, shakily. I know. I'm so happy you're home. The warmth of the food, the familiar taste of turmeric and mustard seeds, the softness of the pohite all felt like medicine. My father sat across from me, watching silently. After a while, he spoke. He trailed off, Unable to complete the sentence, I placed my hand on his. They treated me badly. Papa. Very badly. His shoulders stiffened, his jaw clenched. A shadow passed over his face, the pain of a father who couldn't protect his child from the world. He nodded slowly. We'll talk about it when you're ready, not before. Thank you, I whispered. My parents were simple people. They didn't believe in drama. They didn't believe in fights, but they believed in dignity, and they would not let mine be taken. After I ate, I went to my old room. Nothing had changed. The same pale curtains, the same bookshelf, with my old novels. The same soft mattress that had once held my dreams. I sat on the bed and inhaled deeply. This was the space where I grew into myself, where I laughed, where I cried, where I dreamed of a life I thought marriage would give me. I touched the edge of my pillow, feeling the softness, and whispered, I'm back. A strange calmness settled over me, like a blanket around my shoulders. I wasn't fully healed. I wasn't fully free, but I was home. And that was the first step toward everything else. Later that evening, my mother asked quietly, will Arjun call? He already has, I said. She looked at me steadily. Will you answer? I shook my head. Not yet. Good, she whispered. Not until you're strong enough. I leaned against her shoulder. I'm not afraid anymore, I said. You were never weak, she replied. You were just fighting alone. She put her arm around me. But now, you're not alone. For the first time since my wedding day, I let myself rest. Really rest, because the next chapter of my life was waiting. A chapter where I would face truth, expectations, family pressure, society, but from a place of strength, not fear. And when that time came, I would be ready. The next morning, sunlight streamed into my room through the half-open curtains. The warmth on my face felt like a gentle greeting, as if the universe itself was welcoming me back. For a moment, I just lay there, absorbing the quiet. No banging on doors, no shouting, no commands, no unforgiving chores waiting for me, just peace. I stretched a little, and as I sat up, my phone buzzed on the side table. My heart sank. 10 missed calls from Arjun, 3 from my mother-in-law, 1 from an unknown number that I recognized as my father-in-law. Office line. So they were panicking. Now, I stared at the screen without emotion. My father knocked gently on my door. Beta, breakfast is ready. I'm coming, Papa. Before leaving the room, I turned the phone face down. I wasn't ready, not yet, after breakfast. As I helped my mother in the kitchen, she asked carefully, do you want to block their numbers? No, I said. I want to hear what they say. She looked worried. Will it hurt you? No, I replied confidently. Not anymore. That answer surprised even me, but it was true. Fear had left with the morning sunlight. Around noon, my phone rang again. Arjun's name, flashing. My parents sat quietly in the living room, pretending not to watch me. I took a deep breath, walked to my room, and shut the door. Then I answered. His voice hit immediately, angry, panicking, uncertain. Where are you? Home, I said calmly. Why did you leave? I laughed softly. Because the question itself was absurd. I left because your house is unlivable. Arjun, you should have talked to me. I tried, I said, many times. You didn't listen. He was silent for a moment, then he said the line that revealed everything about him. You should have waited until we came back. I waited long enough, I replied. You embarrassed my family, he snapped. Everyone at the wedding is asking where you are. I closed my eyes. There it was. His real concern, not my happiness, not my safety, his family's reputation. I'm not responsible for your image, I said quietly, especially when your reality is so different. He inhaled sharply. Are you planning to stay there forever? For now, yes. And then what? You expect me to come get you? No, I said. I expect nothing from you. Silence, a heavy silence. You're my wife, he said finally, voice shaking. Then you should have treated me like one. He didn't answer. Arjun, I continued. I didn't leave because of one argument. I left because your family treated me like a servant, because you watched it happen. Asterisk. Because you didn't stand by me even once. That's not true, he muttered weakly. It is, I said. And we both know it. He exhaled shakily. So what now? Now, I said softly. Now I heal. And when I'm ready, we talk about what comes next. Are you saying you want a divorce? I didn't flinch. I'm saying I want a life, I replied. Whether you're in it or not, depends on you. He didn't speak for almost 10 seconds. Then he said something unexpected. I don't want to lose you. I closed my eyes. For the first time, his voice sounded human, not entitled, not angry, not defensive, afraid, but fear alone didn't make him a partner. It didn't erase a month of cruelty. You lost me the day you chose silence, I said quietly, but maybe you can find me again, if you change, and if I can't, then you let me go. Another long silence. Finally, he whispered, I need time? So do I said softly. The call ended. I placed the phone on the bed, exhaled deeply, and let the silence settle. I had expected anger. I had expected manipulation. I had expected denial, but I hadn't expected vulnerability. It didn't fix anything. But it opened a new path, one I didn't have to walk yet, but one I now had the strength to consider. Outside my room, I heard my mother talking softly. The sound of utensils clinking. My father's footsteps crossing the hall. Life was peaceful, real mine, for the first time in a long time. The future didn't scare me. Because whatever came next, I would choose it, not endure it. I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot, but I had reached a turning point, and the next chapters of my life, and this story would be written with clarity, not fear. 3 days passed after the phone call with Arjun. 3 quiet, healing days. My mother fussed over me as if I were a fragile bird who had flown home with broken wings. My father checked on me every few hours, hiding his anger beneath controlled breaths and quiet pats on my shoulder. But they didn't pressure me, didn't demand apologies or explanations, didn't force solutions. They simply let me exist. It was strange at first, waking up without fear, without orders, without tiptoeing around emotions that weren't mine to carry. Slowly, the tension in my muscles eased, the constant knot in my stomach loosened. I began smiling without effort. But peace doesn't stay untouched for long. On the 4th morning, as I helped my mother prepare breakfast, a loud knock echoed through the house. Not a gentle, polite knock. A bang. A demand. My mother froze. The ladle in her hand trembled. My father came out of his room instantly, his face stern. My heart thudded once. Hard they had come. My father walked toward the door, with cautious steps. My mother grabbed my wrist. Go to your room. No, I said firmly, gently removing her hand. I need to face this. The banging grew louder. Open the door. It was my mother-in-law's voice, sharp, entitled. Angry, my father opened the door. The scene outside looked like a confrontation scene in a movie. My mother-in-law stood at the front, her sorry pleats puffed out from her furious breathing. My father-in-law stood stiff behind her, trying to look dignified and failing. Mena hovered behind them, arms crossed, lips pursed in dramatic disapproval. And at the very back, Arjun. He looked exhausted, not angry, not proud, just tired. All 4 of them stepped inside without waiting for permission. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. My father took 1 step forward, blocking their path a little. Why are you here? He asked calmly. My mother-in-law didn't even look at him. She turned toward me instantly. You think you're clever, she snapped, running away like a child. I didn't run, I said quietly. I left. Same thing, she barked. This is humiliating. For you? For us? For everyone. My mother stepped beside me, her eyes blazing. Humiliation comes from wrongdoing, and my daughter did none. My in-laws stared at her, shocked. They weren't used to someone defending me. They weren't used to being challenged. Mena scoffed. We treated her like family. I laughed, not softly, not cruelly, just honestly. You treated me like a servant, I said, not family. My mother-in-law glared. We gave you a home. No, I corrected. You gave me a roof. A home comes from respect, not chores. My father-in-law stepped forward. Enough, you come back today. We can talk about rules after. Rules. There it was again. Everything in their world was about rules. Control. Silence. Obedience. Double quotes. No, I said simply. They all froze. No. My mother-in-law repeated slowly. What do you mean, no? I'm not returning, I said. Asterisk, not now. Not until something changes. Arjun finally stepped forward. Can we talk alone? He asked quietly. My father shook his head. No. Whatever you have to say here. Arjun looked at me. His eyes weren't cold. They weren't angry. They were regretful. I'm sorry, he said. My mother-in-law gasped like she'd been stabbed. What nonsense are you saying? Arjun ignored her. He kept his eyes on me. I should have listened, he said. I should have stood by you. I didn't, I know that. A lump formed in my throat. I swallowed it down. I want to fix things, he continued, but I can't do it if you're not there. You didn't fix anything when I was there, I said. He nodded slowly. I know. Silence. My mother-in-law stepped forward, voice trembling with anger. This girl is poisoning your mind. How can you apologize to her? Arjun turned toward her, and the world seemed to freeze. Because I was wrong, he said simply. The room fell into stunned silence. Even I wasn't expecting that. My mother-in-law stared at him in betrayal. So you take her side now? Arjun looked exhausted. Ma, I'm not choosing sides. I'm choosing what's right. My father's posture softened. Slightly. My mother squeezed my hand. I felt my breath tremble. This wasn't reconciliation. This wasn't closure. This was a door opening, not wide, not easy, but opening nonetheless. Finally, Arjun faced me again. Come back with me, he said. Not to serve, not to adjust. Come back so we can start over. I inhaled deeply. I need time, I said, and I need change. I'll change, he whispered. Not just you, I replied. Your whole house? His eyes flickered. I continued, calmly and clearly. If I ever return, I return as your wife, not as their servant. If they want respect, they must give it to. I won't tolerate abuse again. My mother-in-law exploded. This is madness. She wants to dominate the house. No, I said softly. I just want to live in it. My father stepped forward. My daughter will decide when she's ready. Until then, she stays here. Safe. Arjun nodded. My mother-in-law looked like she was about to faint. My father-in-law's mouth hung open. Mena looked like she had swallowed a lemon. But Arjun looked relieved. He whispered, I'll wait. And for the first time since my marriage, I believed him. Not fully, not blindly, but enough. They left soon after, my in-laws muttering. Meena fuming, my mother-in-law throwing dramatic looks. Arjun paused at the door. Call me, he said. Please, I didn't promise. But I nodded. It was enough. After they left, my mother hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, she whispered. My father put his hand on my head. You're stronger than you think. And as I stood there, wrapped in their safety and love, I realized something important. Leaving wasn't the end of my marriage, it was the beginning of my terms. If there was a future, it would be one I chose, one I shaped, one I owned. No fear, no submission, no silence, only strength. 2 weeks passed. 2 peaceful, healing, transformative weeks. Weakness left my body. Fear left my mind. Silence left my throat. I began waking up with purpose. I helped my mother in the kitchen out of love, not expectation. I walked with my father in the evenings, listening to old stories. I read books I'd abandoned. I rebuilt the pieces of myself I thought I had lost. And slowly, I became someone new. Not the naive newlywed. Not the obedient daughter-in-law. Not the frightened woman. I became me, raw, honest, grounded. I also spoke to Arjun often, once every few days. Not because I owed him anything, but because he was trying. He apologized without excuses. He listened without interruptions. He didn't force me to return. He didn't pressure me. He simply waited. That alone didn't fix anything, but it opened a door. One evening, while I sat on the terrace watching the sunset paint the sky orange, my phone buzzed. It was Arjun. I answered. His voice was steady. Can I meet you? I hesitated, then nodded to myself. Yes. We met in a small cafe near my parents' house. He arrived before me, sitting at a table by the window, hands clasped, eyes tired but sincere. When I sat down, he spoke first. I've changed things, he said. At home, I raised an eyebrow. Like what? My mother doesn't get to enter our room anymore. She doesn't direct your chores. No more waking up early. No more shouting. I told them clearly. I swallowed, and they listened. They didn't have a choice, he said quietly. I didn't give them one. That surprised me, he continued, voice honest. I was a coward. I didn't stand for you.